Hello, and welcome to the podcast Melody and Friends. Well, I am taking a virtual tour completely around the world and interviewing all kinds of wonderful people. And today it is literally around the world because we are landing in Bangkok, Thailand, to interview somebody that I knew many, many years ago, but we've not been able to connect over the last couple of decades, Sheila Page. And she is here going to be talking about her book and her journey, healing one brush stroke at a time. Not brushstroke, one brush stroke at a time. And so, Sheila, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yeah. So I'll let you share probably in parts of your story, but we both went to Stanford University together. We have a number of mutual friends. Anne-Marie Tulliadis is one of those.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so those people that don't know anything about you, why don't you just jump into your story and we'll just see where the Holy Spirit takes us on this journey.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I was a missionary kid. So I was raised in Zimbabwe and then went to college where a lot of missionary kids went to Stanford University. And of course, Anne-Marie is also an MK. I met a lot of MKs there and even married an MK. So I was living, the life that I just really felt like my parents wanted to do missions. And sure enough, we did eventually go overseas and moved to Bangkok, Thailand when our children were young and have lived here. Well, I've lived here for 25 years now, so a long time here. But I do share a common story of sadness and heartbreak and trauma as well. And it's actually was 7 years ago this past weekend that was my D-Day, and that I heard discoveries that I didn't know. Were part of our marriage, part of our life, part of his life that I didn't know. And I entered into a season of just wanting to fix that, to save our marriage, to do whatever it took to help him. And in his case, there was also mental health involved. So lots of counseling, lots of therapy and medication, and trying to be compassionate and understanding, and then trying to find something that would help. So being in Bangkok, a lot of my resources were podcasts, and that's how I became familiar with you, was listening to your podcast. And lots of other help and just different things that we tried. And a few years in, it just became obvious that I was the one doing the work. And he actually entered into an intensive treatment for a while. And I thought with that last ditch effort that he would come back just really ready to work on the marriage. But instead he came back and just really said that I was too hard to live with, and he left. And our agreement had been, if he ever walked out, then that would be the end. So that reality was right in 2020 with the pandemic, and so isolating and lonely, and everything I dreamed of my life, I just was watching it fall apart. And God has been so good even in that. And I turned to painting, and I still look back and I have no idea why, because I never picked up a paintbrush before, except like as a kid, right? Or something. But just why I can remember that my daughter was saying, well, I'm going to go home to my cat, and that's such good therapy right now with all this going on. And I thought, well, what's my good therapy to go home to? So I bought just one canvas and a few acrylic paints and tried that, but I wasn't much of an artist, and tried something from a YouTube channel that didn't work very well. But eventually just my emotions started coming out on the paints. And then I've just painted and painted the last 2.5 years, painted a lot. And it has been my conversations with God and him bringing beauty from my pain and being able to express that. So after about 1.5 years of painting a lot, my mom and a couple others really suggested I put it into book format. And so I did that, and that was published this summer.
That's awesome. And I want to talk a little bit more about this book because it's incredible that you allowed part of your painful process and your journey to be also a place of therapy. And so that's really beautiful. I want to talk about that. There's so many women, Sheila, that I'm like you. I married a minister, at Stanford University. And, obviously the college does not matter, but, when you marry somebody that you feel like you're going to share the gospel with and do ministry with, and then all of a sudden they not only have a private life, but it's almost a you're like, which life is real and which life is fake. And
Yes.
and there's so much devastation, and we know that it's not just devastation within the context of marriage. It's the devastation with your kids, and it's devastation with the people that you've served, and so there's so many layers of loss.
Yes.
But then I want to circle back and hone in on one thing, because I really can identify with you here, is when then they turn, instead of stepping into a place of remorse and then repentance, they turn and they blame. So it's this like double hurt, really, when you're now blamed for the decisions that you can't be innocent and be guilty at the same time. And I work with so many women, not just in ministry, but just, they do everything they can. There's a lot of sacrifices that come when you're in ministry, right? And now all of a sudden, he is the source of your pain, but then he's also blaming you for this as well. And so how did you hold that? Like, what did you do in those early days? Because there are going to be women right now listening that may be finding out. We know that the holidays brings out all the beauty, but the
Mhm.
holidays also exposes a lot of things. And so there are going to be women that are in ministry alongside their husbands, and just women in general that are going to be finding out over the holidays. And we want to be there for them, and we have things in place for them. But just what did you do with that?
Yeah. You're so shocked at first, and your head's spinning and you're hurt and you're trying to figure things out. And then when it, there are accusations against yourself, like, well, you haven't listened to me enough, or you're controlling, or you're hearing these things and you're trying to make sense of that at the same time. Like, am I? And I didn't know that. And I didn't realize that. So you're doing all this inward seeking and searching at first, and trying to figure out, is that true? That is some of this my fault? And then that's where, oh, I'm just so thankful for the internet to discover podcasts and people saying that you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, you can't control it, to hear truth, to come across resources, and just to see other stories. Like, I was just clinging to other people's stories because I was trying to make sense of everything. And of course, I did do a lot of inner work in the last 7 years. In fact, I feel like a completely different person. God's taught me so much,
Yeah.
yes, about my own brokenness and his grace and depending on him, but also about how important it is to walk in reality and walk in truth, and to not deny deny the problems that are there, to be willing to name them and see them and acknowledge them. But that's very, very hard when you've loved someone a long time, and when you want the picture of what you had in your mind to be true, you want it so badly, and you're
Yeah.
trying to get back to that place of where life was. And yeah, and it's not working, and it's so hard.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's if we're just trying to make this black and white, it's, I mean, when you're in ministry, or when I've been talking to women in the military right now, and or wives of people in the military, and it's so similar of just, you know, it's not just you walking away from somebody. I mean, you love somebody, you want to fight for that person, you want to stay together. I mean, you know, all the things. And it's the same with the military. You can lose your housing, you can lose your,
Mhm.
everything. You don't just lose a marriage if you step away from this marriage. And so there's so much at stake. And I think that's what's so hard for us to hold, is that we love this person, but this person keeps hurting us.
Yes.
And if you're listening today and you're a woman who maybe you've just found out, and maybe you are getting the blame game, and I just want to speak to that. Sheila, you don't have to say anything. I'm going to go on and say it, because yes, there is brokenness. We both bring things into the marriage. There's brokenness, but deception and lies are not a marriage problem.
That's right.
Pornography and sexual addiction is not a marriage problem. They create marriage problems, but they are character problems that end up wreaking havoc and you have to lie more and you have to hide more and you have to deceive and and so that's what ends up so many times getting exposed. And
Yeah.
so, I just want to speak to that woman who might be listening, because if we can figure out that maybe it's our fault, then we spend all the time trying to remedy the
Yes.
problem instead of healing from the pain. And
Yes,
so,
that's
it
right. Yeah,
yeah, it
and
sounds like
I
you've got some.
definitely did that. I kept pursuing that, for a long time and kept trying to figure that out and yeah, but I do think it was hearing truth just over and over. Like I needed truth tellers in my life. I needed counseling. I needed people speaking the truth and knowing that I think I heard that like a marriage can only be as healthy as the least healthy person. Like I couldn't make it healthy if he wasn't willing to work on his
Right,
own,
right.
and that one person can't hold a two-person commitment together. Like just a lot of things like that just really would just stay in my mind, like okay. And is really learning about denial, like that even I wanted to live in denial, that maybe it's not so bad, or maybe if I just do this, like different things of denial, but realizing no, I have to face this and
Yeah,
call it what it is. And when you're just getting hurt over and over again, and I think especially in places where it's the trickle truthing, like you're always learning something new and you can't even get on solid ground. Like as soon as you think you've gotten on solid ground and there's something else that shakes everything again. I think that was just so hard to live in all the time.
yeah. The staggered disclosure, it's almost like you don't even get a little crust on the scab. I mean, it's
Right.
not even fully coming together and it gets ripped off again. And so
Yes.
that
Yes.
staggered disclosure is just, it's almost trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I hear that. And it sounds like you had some people around you that loved you well and were
I
truth
did.
tellers, because that's really important, that your reality all of a sudden is like, who do I trust? Like, what is real? And
That's right.
it sounds
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you got some people around you.
I did. I did. It was hard to know, like, who do you tell at first and what does that look like? And I was thankful to be told, like, you don't have to tell everybody everything and you need a group of close friends that can walk this with you. And felt like I did have some safe friends that I could share with and that have walked through this with me. But it's also like when you've been taught, honoring. It's just so hard to even put words to the story at first and to know how to tell someone when everyone loves and respects your husband. You don't want to be talking badly about him. Like there's all these different conflicting things that you need a safe place. And I just think for any women that have not yet shared with somebody just how important that is, that
Yeah.
first putting the words to your story is just so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting the words to your story. I love that. I feel personally, and again, it's my own percentage. It's not, it's my own stat, but I feel like probably 50% of the healing to start, to really get you down the road is having safe people to hold a
Yes.
sacred space for you to share your story. There's
Yeah.
work that has to be done, obviously, but that's one of the first things that we do is try to get a lady to safety. What does she need to be safe, and who can we put around her so that she can feel safe? Because
Yes.
it
Yeah.
is not only holding space for you, but being able to speak the truth, because it is a very confusing process.
Yes. Yes.
So you
Yeah.
found that, was it around Thailand or was it more like people all over the world or?
Yeah, yeah. I think my team would be people all over the world. Some friends here, some family, and then throughout the time, I had a few sessions with Marsha Means, as she's a betrayal trauma coach, and then she was very good to network because she knew I didn't have money to continue that long term, to networking with other people. So those mentors and connections were super helpful. So I just feel like God just kept putting people in my path, and then really good counselors as well. So
So good. Yeah. So Marsha Means, for those that don't know, she helped write the book with Dr. Barbara Steffens, My Sexually Addicted Spouse. And um, they have a network of trauma informed specialists. So if you go to access.org and you live anywhere around the world, you can actually find somebody who can really hold space So many women are re-traumatized if they go to a ministry leader or a counselor that doesn't understand trauma. And so we're finding more and more networks where women can reach out and actually get somebody who's trauma informed to hold space for that lady and really actually help her walk through that. So that's awesome. How did you connect with
Yeah.
Marsha?
Again, just the internet. I think in a lot of those sexual integrity summits by Bravehearts,
Yep.
that between those, and yeah.
Yep.
So
Love
I just
people.
did anything online that I could do. I was so hungry for information, and I think in a ministry or missionary context, you really don't know who to talk to about it. So there's just that whole isolating feeling. So I just was really desperate for information. And part of my putting the book together is I put resources, and I made a glossary at the back of it because I was just thinking, what do I wish I'd had? Because there was so much language. I didn't know about trauma or shame. There are just so many things I didn't know about. And so I wanted to put things where a kind of resource that if somebody, their world falls apart, they've just found out this disclosure, that there's a pretty gift book. It has 42 by painting, like something pretty to put in their hands and not heavy. Like I couldn't read. And
Right.
eventually I got where I couldn't journal. That's why I turned to painting. Like I couldn't write the same words down. I couldn't do that. It just seemed like I'm just repeating. There were things that had been normal part of my life that I just couldn't do anymore. And part of that was reading heavier books, deeper books. So these are just in little short segments because I just thought in the middle of the trauma, I just couldn't read more than that.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, there's so many symptoms that go on after we find out that are really post-traumatic stress symptoms. And if we don't get to safety and get the help we need, it can turn into PTSD. And so so many things. What were some additional just symptoms? Memory loss, sleeplessness. Did you have some of that going on?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Lots of that going on. I think just my heart rate increasing a lot, and it still does. I went on medication for 3.5 years to help with the depression and anxiety, and so I've just recently been coming off that and still trying to learn to read my body and find out where I'm feeling that anxiety, and really giving that to the Lord and recognizing it and trying to just be willing to see my pain, see my hurt and my anxiety and working through it, learning a lot of just more exercises of breathing or mindfulness or breath prayers, just ways to handle that. But I remember one part being so dark that I just, in my mind, I felt like I was always laying on the floor, even though I was getting up and going to work. Like I was going through the motions. But we had our member care person at work one day, and she was, having my interview, talking with her, and then I just started crying. I said, I feel like I'm laying on the floor and I can't even get up. I can't get up. And she said, you don't have to try to get up. Just stay in that place until God helps you raise up on your elbow. And then eventually you can sit in a chair and
Mm,
eventually walk. And all that was not literal, although sometimes it felt like it
right.
was, but just to have that word picture and that in my mind, that I don't feel like at those moments, I never felt like I'll ever walk again. I'll never, run again or dance again, but just wait on God's timing, and that it's okay to be laying in the ash heap crying. I needed to know that was uh, it's a normal response for the pain that I'd gone through, the,
Yes.
the shock and the trauma. Like it is okay to grieve that.
Yes.
It's worth grieving over. It is sad and it is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is sad and it is very hard. And that's why it's so important for you to have, a tribe around you, a safe tribe. And sometimes it
Yeah.
takes a little while to find that. You might tell a friend and, that friend either doesn't have the tools to walk with you in that, or she may have trauma of her own that's in the past and she can't walk with that. So I always say, you'll know who your friends are when you go through something like this. But
Yes.
sometimes our friends just can't handle some of it based on their own woundedness and their own trauma. So
Yeah.
keep at it if you are trying to find a counselor, keep at it if you're trying to find the right friends to walk with you in it because they are out there. And so I think that's really, really good. So let's get into your painting. So did you just wake up one day and decide to grab a paintbrush, or was it
It
actually
really
talking to your
was
daughter?
that quick. It really
Wow.
was that. Just my daughter said she was going home to her cat, and I thought I need something to go home to because that was when he was in intensive treatment. And yeah, it was the first of my life I'd ever been on my own. I'd always had sisters and then college roommates, and we got married our senior year of college. So I just had never even been coming home to an empty place. And so I did just pick up a paintbrush and first, all I could paint were eyes. I don't know why, just these big eyes on all these canvases. But eventually, I got to painting other things, and yeah, it just turned into, I think, a way for me to start putting paint on the canvas, and then God to speak to me in that and bring in some light and grace as I did it.
That's so neat, Sheila, that you said that. I'm sometimes I can be a visual person while somebody's talking. And when you said that you started out painting all these eyes, my first thought was God saying he sees you.
Yes.
Like it's just and eyes are not easy to paint anyway. So I just think that's very interesting. And then it kind of went from there. So you've written all these. I'm not gonna show too many things, but you have writing in your book as well as a lot of the painting. And one of the things that I love about our healing process is like what works for me may not be what somebody else does. I love this one right here. But there's art therapy, there's horse therapy, there's music therapy, there's therapy. And so and sometimes you want to utilize lots of different ones. There's breathing therapy, where we can really get in touch with what's going on inside of our bodies. But I love this. So how did you go from painting to actually putting this book together? What was the inspiration behind the book?
Yeah, I think, well, at first I was even too embarrassed to even tell anybody I was painting. It's like you just feel like a little kid trying out something new and not knowing. But then it was like, this is a way to kind of share with my closest friends and my mom, like, this is kind of what I'm feeling and going through. And as I started to share it, then especially my mom, but several people were like, I think you should share that with others. Like it connects with other people as well, right?
Yes.
So I actually had been back to my daughter's wedding in 2021 and flew back to Thailand, but we had to be in quarantine here at that time. So when I came back, I had to spend 15 days alone in a hotel room. So that's when I started, like, why don't I just try to write about what the painting's about? Because like I said, my journaling had shut down. A lot of things had shut down that I used to do. But then I thought maybe I can write about the paintings, and then that seemed to work. So I decided to do. It can be a 6-week devotional if somebody wants to do it that way. So it has the painting, a verse, and then a reflection, and then some questions, or it can be read all together. Just how everybody wants to do it. But yeah, I decided to do it with 42 of the paintings.
I love that. I love that. So I guess maybe one last thing before we actually talk about how people can find your book and all that. What would you say to a woman who may have just found out the truth about her husband? Maybe, and it's not even a full disclosure, maybe just, you know, initially he has been found out. What would you share to that woman right now? What was really important for you to know?
I think one of my paintings, and I think I have it behind me here. Let me grab it.
Yeah, grab it.
I think this one with the world falling apart. I don't know if you can see that's like the world's falling apart, but then it does, the pieces turn into a flower. And I think that image just helped me so much, like, because I just kept thinking, my whole world's falling apart. My whole world's falling apart. And I was just so stuck on that, and things like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. Like, you're supposed to have a husband that's faithful and true. And this is not at all what I thought it would be like, and not at all what I wanted. So I just kept thinking, it's all falling apart. It's all falling apart. But then for God to say in that, as I'm picturing this world falling apart, that he can take those pieces and build something new and beautiful. And so to someone whose world is in that, the pieces are just falling and all you see are the jagged edges and the grief for your children, all the pain that we as moms, we carry for them as well, right? Like all that is all that you can see. I would just want to encourage you that one day you're going to see some beauty being built, and you're going to see that God can redeem and bring beauty, even with the things that you thought you would never recover from. And I feel like I'm still in process. I'm by no means saying like I'm at this place of where everything is healed and wonderful, but the healing process has been taking place. And I can tell these different, places that I'll be just, I couldn't have done this a year ago. I would have never felt this. You can see the healing taking place and see the joy. And one of my paintings is from a conversation with my counselor. And I had been telling him, like, how do I get through this without being bitter and angry? I don't want to be a bitter, angry old woman. I don't want to be that way. And he said, well, Sheila, what do you want to be? And I pictured this story, and I think it comes from a Patsy Claremont book years and years ago. And it was about a lady whose husband had left her. And then she'd been through so much heartache. But one day her adult kids, her two daughters, come home to visit her, and she can't even hear them. They enter the house, and she's got the music on so loud, and she's dancing with the mop in the kitchen. And so when Chad asked me, well, Sheila, what do you want for your future? I just said, I want to dance in the kitchen. And so that I then immediately painted that, and that has become kind of my goal for the future. That's what I want. I want to be able to be so content in what God has for me. I want to believe that he can bring good out of things that were not good. And I want to believe that his love for me and the kids, like he is faithful and true to us. So that was just like, okay, that picture is my goal. And I do believe, I find myself singing and dancing again. So I just would want any woman that's just in the dark, when you can only see the dark and the ashes, to know that you will make it through. Whether your marriage does or not, I don't know, but you will make it through.
Yeah, and I want to just add just a few things to what you just said. Everything that you said was incredible, and absolutely 100% agree with you. If you are that woman, my hope is that you will realize that it's not your fault, that you cannot be responsible for the decisions of another person, but you do get to control the rest of the story. You do get to do the next right thing, which is go get healing. And many times, a lot of times people just try to start couple counseling. And I'm like, no, you go find somebody that can hold a safe space for you, because you need safety. And sometimes it takes a little longer, to find that person. But we even have a vetting process, like look for this, look for this, look for this, look for this. And if not, we'll help them find a counselor. So I just think that's so important, because if she stays in a place of helplessness, that is where things can get really, really sideways and really, really painful. And so something has happened to you. It's not because of you, but you do get to choose the next thing. So I love what you've said. So Sheila, tell us how we can get this little book in our hands.
Okay. You can certainly get it off Amazon or Barnes and Noble on the internet.
We don't have to go to Thailand to get it?
You don't have to. No. Just type in Healing One Brushstroke at a Time. You can also visit my website at SheilaHarkins.com, or you can go to Instagram and find me at a.painting.sojourner, a painting sojourner. So those are places.
And I'll make sure that we have all that in the show notes. We make sure that we put all that in the show notes. And if you are a woman in need of healing, please go to Togetherness Project. We have resources, we have podcasts, we have scholarships available. We know, again, around the holidays, it can be a very difficult and devastating time, whether you've just found out or maybe, this is your first holidays post everything. And so even that can be triggering. And so please go check out togethernessproject.com. And we put our emails in there. We put our phone numbers in there, so you literally can reach out to us. I have so many times people say, wait, your phone number's on there? And I'm like, yeah, my phone number's on there, because I may not be able to get to you right away, but I will get back to you and get our team to you. And so we're just really big proponents of believing that, we want to hold women's hands. And sometimes it is literally holding them up for a little bit, or putting an arm underneath her and helping carry her weight for a little bit until she can get the the healing that she needs, and and have her find her footing again, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's super exciting to know, Sheila, that you have found your footing, and you found your voice and your creativity. It's so beautiful when we actually begin to remember who God's called us to be,
Yes.
and
Yes.
whose we are.
Yes. Yeah. There's times that I will think I'm starting to feel like the old Sheila that could laugh and have joy, like I find that again. And it's just so wonderful to think, yes, he does restore.
Yes, he does. He does. Well, awesome. Well, I will put all of those links in the show notes so people that can find you, because I think your book can be an inspiration to so many people, no matter who it is. Because I
Well,
just think
I hope it will help, because I know that I was just desperate for help. I remember that desperation. So
yeah, there's beauty in those strokes, and so
Mhm.
and some tears probably on some of those pages too, right?
Yes, for sure. Lots of tears.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited
Thank
about getting this
you.
book out, and I'm excited about getting your work out, and keep painting.
Thanks, Melody. That's been really great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. This episode has been brought to you by Life Beyond Betrayal. Life Beyond Betrayal is a comprehensive program that provides a community as well as 3 courses for women. The first course is Surviving Trauma Beyond Betrayal. Our second course is called Grieving Beyond Betrayal. And the third course is called Reclaiming You Beyond Betrayal. This is a self-paced program that you can take as long as you want to go through, and also provides a community so that you feel like you have the support that you need. So check out Life Beyond Betrayal membership at lifebeyondbetrayal.com.